știi, Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
I've always loved sci-fi. I've always, I think I sort of grew up watching movies, obviously like Star Wars and Star Trek, but particularly I had a love for Roger Corman movies when I grew up. Because after Star Wars came out, there was this urge by the studios to make their own massive sci-fi movies. So Disney made The Black Hole, and then Paramount made Star Trek Motion Picture. And although those films were like really great in their own rights, what Roger Corman understood, he managed to capture that energy, and that was what you find in films like Battle Beyond the Stars or Space Raiders. So knowing that we were going to be making a sci-fi that had a very, very limited budget, that was the well that I kind of went to see what we could try to do using modern filmmaking techniques to a degree. 3, 2, 1, fire!
Hello, welcome back, Verde. Welcome to another lockdown extravaganza. Is that a thing? I think people are fed up of saying things like that and prefacing their videos that look like Skype, because that's what this is. I'm back again for another of my... I haven't really named this as a series, and I perhaps should have, but a kind of industry insider, behind-the-scenes discussion of careers in the film industry. And joining me today is a familiar face from obviously our Jaws episode, but also just general chit chat around these parts here in Valverde. It's Marc Vincent Price, according to his Skype name.
It really is my middle name.
Yeah, nice.
So
there you go.
I don't. Sorry, that was a very weird thing. It's like I said it with so much pride. I'm already coming off like a cunt. So it's like
and demonetized.
Oh no! It's a Welsh word. It means, Marc Vincent Price.
It's like cowl. It's a sheep's intestine, and what you do is you wrap up the. Oh, I can't say that word either. What can I say? I don't know.
Keep it so you're not demonetized and you get all the money.
So it's all good. So
this Jesus.
So Marc, as everyone I'm sure knows, is a film director and one who I've had the great pleasure of working with on Fistful of Lead over 2 years ago now, which is ridiculous. But there we are. But I thought, as we did with Brad, who is a mutual friend of ours, and in fact, you're the reason why Brad and I are in touch and such good friends as well. So thank you. Let's.
Brad mentioned. I saw Brad mention that in the last one. I was like, oh, is it? Oh, that's like I don't remember. I don't. Is that a nice thing? That's a nice thing, isn't it? Brad. Yeah. Brad's friends. I don't know. I'm not very good at remembering the nice things I do. I remember all the terrible things. It's devastating.
A guilty mind. That speaks to a terribly guilty conscience. Yeah. So let's start where you start then. Why don't you give us a sort of rundown of kind of where you started out in terms of your film journey and kind of how you got into the industry?
I'm always really bad at this. So whenever I'm asked to do a talk and someone says, "Oh, can you tell us about yourself?" I'm like, I'm here and I don't really know what I did. So hi. But I think I'm from that era of making movies with camcorders because that was it. That was all we had access to. Film was too expensive. So I ended up with a camcorder, which was part of some insurance scam a friend of mine was pulling, where he pretended it was nicked and sold it to me for some other price or whatever. This was Swansea. I believe this sort of thing goes down all the time. So that was my first camcorder. I didn't get that till I was 21. I just got my mates together and said, let's just try this. So I started trying all these things I wanted to try from the age of about 10. So I think from there I ended up using that camera to make. I didn't really make many short films. I think I made two short films. Then I dived straight into a feature that I completely screwed up, and then I made Colin, and that was sort of like that ended up working out in a weird way where I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can make another film, and eventually I did, but it just took a very long time. And no one watched it, so that's so in the industry. I'm not entirely sure about it. It's sometimes a job, and mainly it's just a thing that I just really love doing, and I've somehow managed to just about at this stage turn it into. And I think this is because I shifted focus on what I really needed this to be for me, and I needed it to be a job, and it's sort of become that now. Only over the last few years, where I've been able to just about pay rent and sustain a light alcoholism through like directing or something to do with filmmaking.
You're right.
That
Yeah,
makes sense. That was awful. I'm sorry.
No, that's quite right. No, not at all. I think people are often. I think speaking, as someone who trying to get my career off the ground, I would spend a lot of time watching things like Inside the Actor Studio and other things, trying to glean from the interviewee what it was that got their foot in the door. And what I tended to find with actors anyway was it was this thing of, like Matthew McConaughey is saying, well, I was just standing around on a corner and Steven Soderbergh said to me, or whoever, like some directors, I just came out. There's always this massive disconnect between I just went to Hollywood and then I got a job, and it's like, right, but there's probably more to it than that, So, what kind of got your foot in the door? So I guess, like in your case, I mean, Colin, for those of you who don't know, is a zombie film. Is it? Am I right to say sort of found footage style?
No,
zombie film?
I didn't. It was something I think everyone thought we'd do because that was what you do with camcorder movies. And I said, no, let's make a film. Let's tell a story. Let's lean into the grittiness, the grottiness, in fact, of shooting a movie this way, and let's just tell a story, and we'll use filmmaking techniques to tell that story. Right. And I think I kind of naively assumed people would go with it because there's a company called Indigent that were making all these films that were shot on sort of kind of DV, and 28 Days Later, of course, did really well. And that film didn't look anywhere near as pretty as those movies because it was me running around with the camera. But it was something that I sort of thought, no, let's just tell a story. Let's not worry about the tech.
Right.
And I mean, and it shows. It's a really ugly movie, but we wanted to put as much heart into it as possible, and that was it. I think that was the thing that carried it because. We were very fortunate. We went to Cannes with it. We got a sales agent, and the sales agent said we should go to Cannes. I said, look, I'm living out of my overdraft at the moment, so I can't afford that. She said, oh no, I know how to do this really cheap. It's gonna be great. And so we went there, and we were talking to someone about how much the film cost, and it dawned on my sales agent she didn't really know. She said, oh, it probably cost a couple of £100, right? And I said, I ain't got that much. No, it's cost like 40, 50 quid, I don't know. And the person we talked to said, hey, that's something of an achievement. You should mention that. And I thought, okay, why not? Because, we were naive. And that, because of the economic crisis at the time, 2008, 2009, we got some press attention for it. And then when people saw the film, there was some feeling that it was like a movie. There was a story in there somewhere that you could hook an audience. And so we had a second wave then once the film was distributed, that we got distribution and it sort of went from there. Really, it became this sort of like DIY movie making thing, which I'm not sure how much of that has actually changed, especially with the one that we've been finishing now. I've literally had to do it at home with my laptop. But at the very least, I've had other much more talented people working on their laptops, then emailing stuff for me to drop into the film. So
yeah, I mean, it's. Do you think that was because that's often a thing? I mean, I would say that's an extreme example. Sort of making it for 40 quid, and but it's often I guess the Faustian bargain that some filmmakers come up against, which is that it's a selling point to say how little you made it for, but then that becomes a sort of yoke around your neck because then people expect you to this alchemy to continue, and they're going to hand you another 40 quid, and you're going to go off and make it, because that's what you do, right? And it's kind of the handoff then to say, okay, give me 40 million quid, and I'll go and make,
Yeah, it was interesting because someone gave me said, "Oh, will you write a script for write the sequel for Colin?" Or it wasn't so much a sequel, but it was I took the sort of Romero approach of doing another story set in that sort of world, and ours was set a little bit later, and it involved a different set of characters perspective. And I thought that I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. And it's like, as I was writing it, I thought I was writing it as a sort of writing assignment, really. And but I might make this if I like it, but it's really something I'm just going to write, and they can try shopping it around and see if they can find a budget for it. But then when I said, yeah, okay, cool, I've written it, I think I want to make it. And they said, okay, cool, you think you can make this for $2,000? I went, what? No. That's my fee for writing it. And they went, oh, okay, well, we can give you that if you want. And I thought, well, you know what? I think I want to make this. So I sort of sat on it, and I haven't made it, but I've taken bits from it and stuck it in other films. But it was one of those things you just sort of thought, oh, wow, yeah, that was a prime example of people thinking, I'd want to work my balls off to make a film for nothing again. And I think one of the things I thought we'd earned at the very least with Colin was the right to get paid something. So, because I could, I think I mentioned this to you, I can make a film tomorrow. I've got everything I need. I've got, lovely people who will do it. I've got kit. I can cut this thing together. I can make a film tomorrow. It's well, not so much with the Corona thing. that throws a spanner in the works. But assuming that everyone could get together in a room, we could make a movie. And I just don't see why we should. We did that, and that landed with a bigger splash than it should have. So I want money to pay people something, and that's kind of that's kind of the way I've looked at it. And I think I worked in development for quite a while then, sort of coming up with shows that were then pitched and never made. And then before you realize it, you sort of look around and go, shit, I haven't actually made anything for about 5-6 years. I should fucking make something. So and then the panic kicks in, and then we started looking for money to make something. And then of course the next one we made was Nightshooters, and at the time we were looking for money for Nightshooters, someone offered us money to make Fistful of Lead, and we sort of went, okay, we'll do that because we want to be in business with you guys. So we'd agreed to do 2 films in 1 year, and then of course after that played with some producing, and then they let me make the sci-fi, which we're just finishing up now. So it's a crazy route where it doesn't feel so much like I've done that much. But I think over the last couple of years, the last 2 years, certainly since Fistful of Lead, it's been kind of really busy, and I don't think I've been happier. It's like I finally, which is good, because you get to a phase where you go, oh God, I might have screwed this up. I might have approached this the wrong way, and is this ever going to pay the rent? Which I know sounds like such a ridiculous thing to say you need, but it comes a point where you really do need that, because I want this to be my job, because I really love doing it, and I'm so satisfied doing it. And so that's the thing that became the thing I was chasing, and when we chased it with a bit more sort of common sense, we found a way to make it work. So
I think you're absolutely right, and I think you hit on something that's very important, and something I try and sort of imbue certainly actors with, but other directors I've spoken to as well, which is this thing of there's always that kind of very earnest but very, I think, misguided idea of saying, oh, I'll do it for nothing. I just want a chance, just want an opportunity. And because that then permeates everything. I get a lot of offers for doing films that it seems like the assumption out the gate is that I am going to be willing to, if not outright work for free on the movie, I'm going to be giving of all my time and resources in the build up to it. You know what I mean? This sounds incredibly prima donna-ish, but what I mean is that my time is just theirs now. You know, it doesn't matter what you know what I mean. And it's kind of like, and that this speaks to everyone else. Is that you should have an attitude that says, no, I don't work for free. I'm working. You know, if I work on anything else, if I do writing, if I do, all the other things I do to earn money, I expect to get paid. There's no reason why you shouldn't, especially when you've kind of got to the stage that you have, and I think I have now, 10 and a half years into it, where, there's also a reason why you're coming to me, and the reason why you're asking me to do something. It's not because I'm no one and I've got, I'm not saying I'm a celebrity. I'm a bloody Z-list celebrity or a Z-list celebrity. But that's not the point. The point is, I've got experience, I've got credits, I've got, all this stuff behind me. And so, you should at some point say, no, this, when you say pay the rent, I mean, that's sort of kind of, but you may not mean that literally, or you may, but the point is that you should be able to make a living out of this, and
yes. I think we what we do, like, is of course our films are low budget, and I'm the kind of, like asshole filmmaker who wants to aim higher, so I'm like, look, let's try this, and so I think in a lot of cases our rates are, they're not great, but we're always upfront with it. We're always like, look, this is what we can afford for this. If you want to do it, this is the experience we're going to try and have. Because for me, I love the communal experience of making a film. I enjoy it. I really, really love it. And I'm not sure how much of that comes across from like we did Fistful of Lead from your side. But for me, I love sitting down and watching you guys sort of like figure stuff out with me, and I kind of enjoy that whole sort of process, and then the sort of the fun of like just taking risks and saying, it'd be better if we did this. Let's throw the script away for a minute. Let's try this, and I kind of like that, and I like the challenge of that, and and then working with you guys, I kind of find it like extremely satisfying, and I come away feeling like fulfilled. And I think if you can provide that on a creative sense, that's in a weird way where we fail to like maybe pay the rates that we want to, we can make up for it with at least you get to thrive creatively in a way that we read in the way that I do, because I don't get, it's not like we'll give you a little bit of money and then I'll get loads. I don't get fuck all either.
No. I should say for the record as well, we were compensated on a Fistful of Lead. I'm not making any comment on that at all.
I don't know. Like Michelle's really nice. She's good. She keeps that sort of stuff away from me, and well, she doesn't keep it away from me. It's just that like that's her role as a producer. She decides that. And she knows how we make these, how I work. So she knows what she needs to make sure we've got in reserve in case something goes wrong or in case something goes right. And I think that one of the things is really, I think one time I said, oh, look, we should pay someone more. We should give them this much. And she's like, that's less than what we currently give them. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay, fine. Don't listen to me. But I think my assumption is, that everything is so much worse than it is. I think that's what I'm like in the film. I always have my phone off, or I give it to someone, and I just don't even want to know what time it is. I'll assume we're always late, and that helps keep me going. And there's nothing better than when I turn around and I'll turn to like Michelle or Gabby and say, what time is it? How are we doing? And she's like, oh, it's only 2:00. We're doing great. It's like 2:00. I thought it was 4. This is fucking wicked. I can slow down. I can have a sandwich. It's fun.
Dude, I mean, I have to. Speaking about it from the other end. We had. I think it's what's really great about your sets and stuff like that, or the set I was on anyway, is that there is a sense of camaraderie and a sense of with the example of Fistful of Lead, we were kind of literally in a cabin in the woods together, and making food together and hanging out. And that's one of the best things about it, is like that, if you're on a big production, you're all going off to hotels or in trailers, and there's no sense of community about it. And I think that's a real shame. And so it was lovely to be stuck in an old mining museum, chatting around, like doing our lines, chatting about stuff, huddled around heaters, and then thrust down into the old mine to do lying on the floor.
Bang my head on that fucking low beam so many times.
Yes.
But the thing that was really fun about that is that you were working with, I think, people that you hadn't met before, right? You didn't know anything.
Well, James I'd met, I think, briefly, and James and I had actually been in films, both been in the same film a lot, but not actually met.
That's cool.
Which is
I
weird.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
The thing is kind of cool is that, like, I work with a lot of the same guys, and like the group of people who I feel really close to, and like I'm just like some of my favorite actors all in that space. And I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome that, like, all these guys from all these different areas of my life are now in this scene. And I kind of got a bit of a kick out of that, and not just in front of the camera, but Sam Walker, when I met our cinematographer, when I met him, he was like a student of mine, and now he's a really close collaborator and friend. My girlfriend Lee was in there, and like she just, her work constantly blows my mind, and it's just one of those sort of things where it's just a great little teeny tiny cramped muddy space where everyone was just brilliant, and some of that was some of my favorite. Trying to find different ways to shoot a teeny corner was a hell of a challenge, but I really enjoyed it. I love the way that sequence looks. I think Fistful of Lead is one of my favorite looking of the films. I think it's one I was so excited by visually. It's one I really like. It's just it's just, it is what it is. It's like a fun little sort of Western.
Yeah, I mean, certainly when I showed up to it, well, I guess you were you were a few days in, I think, and I remember thinking, because the beast from the east descended, didn't it, right at the time you started? Yeah. And so I think that spoke to the kind of the need to be adaptable in it, but it gave you some incredible vistas and some incredible looking stuff that, like the aerial shots and everything are just so unique, I think, because it's not often that we get that kind of snow coverage sort of consistently for a period of time to be able to shoot it, so. And again, that's an advantage of having a smaller production, is that actually the limitations of having to shoot it all in 2 weeks or something mean that you're not missing stuff like that. I think we did have to get some continuity fake snow for when we were at the village.
You know what, I don't think I think the way I sort of worked it was that the weather descends as the film goes on, so I thought, okay, if we have to shoot this in baking heat, we can make this. We can bring in the temperature. So I spoke to our colorist about that, and he was like, "Yeah, we can do that. That'll work." And Sam had a plan, and it was the thing that I loved the most about that weather was just how great it looked. And I was like, let's just run with it. And I remember there was a day when we couldn't. We were trying to avoid shooting the ground too much because we didn't know what kind of consistent snowfall we'd have. So we were trying to keep it, like, we were trying to cover ourselves. But there was one point where this massive front came in and it blew. So it's sideways snow, right? So that it blew into the trees. So the trees that we were filming were suddenly covered in snow. We're only covered in snow in the direction it was coming. And I said, look, if we film everything that way, you can't see the snow is on those trees because the snow it blew this way. The snow was on the back of the trunk. So let's do that instead of not film. And it worked perfectly. It was like, I can't even remember what part of the film that was, but no, I can't remember what scene it was, but it worked. I was like, oh shit, okay. It's one of those things when you suggest it, everyone's like, that's dumb. It's like, no, if you really think of this just through the lens, that's what you're going to see, and that's going to be fine. And so little things like that, I think when a problem comes up and you can figure it out, that's fun. That it's, it makes a nice bit of trivia on IMDb that no one will ever read because no one watches the film.
Yeah,
I just make movies that nobody watches. It's what I do.
No. What was the what was the genesis of that? Because obviously that was a, you know, for those of you who don't know, that was a Western shot in Shropshire and South Wales and Kent. Kent or Sussex? Kent.
It was, shit.
Yeah,
Kent.
Yeah.
It's Kent, yeah.
So
Red Dwarf, yeah, you've got a lot of Red Dwarf fans who watch this, I guess. Yeah, so it's where the Crichton Western game town was set. That's where we shot that. When someone mentioned it, I went, "Oh, for Red Dwarf." We're like, "Holy shit, it is!"
Yeah, there's quite randomly there's a very convincing Western town set. I don't know what its origins are. I'm sure you do, but it's not far from Brands Hatch. That's why I remember when I was on my way there, I was like, "Oh, we're at Brands Hatch," and oh, there it is. But it's a sort of I gather they do reenactments there. But what else was it for? Was it a museum or something?
No, I think they just sort of enjoy it's almost like a sort of cosplay utopia for people who love dressing up in a Western setting, and so they just kind of live there. They hang out there. They'll go there for a weekend and not bring their phones in. So the rules are you have to live like they lived at the time. So there's not much electricity there. If you remember, we had like one extension lead that was plugged into something and that powered everything, which luckily for us wasn't much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really interesting place and really lovely people as well. They were really sort of cool. I remember when we shot one of the characters' deaths, and he coughed blood, and it was amazing. He coughed it all over the floor, and I just went, blood on the floor. I mean, I'm glad we did it because that's what I want. I don't want it to look like bullshit, but so I was like cleaning it up, hoping no one would watch. It's like, oh, no one saw nothing.
Because you shot there. Oh, sorry, we shot. I was only there for a day, but were you there for 2 days? Is that right?
2 days. So everything in that town was done in 2 days. Which,
amazing.
I was watching the film with a friend over Christmas when it put on. I was drunk enough to, for some reason, agree to it, and I was just like, no, we did a lot in this Western town. Like a good chunk of it takes place there. Scenes that are indoors there as well, and I thought, wow, we managed to get through that in 2 days. I don't really know how. It's a lot, including an action scene with like horses and shit running around.
I was gonna say you've got horses charging around. You've got a fight scene. Yeah, you've got my cousin's cameo, which is really important. Bella. And I remember in the middle of all that, we also went and did publicity stills down the bottom of the thing. So it was like real crammed. I mean, if that again, this is the beauty of, in a way, of being sort of in an indie film or on low budget, is the fact that, you know, you can just get stuff done. Whereas I think on a major production, you'd have to have all the you'd have Video Village for one thing, so that'd constantly be moving around. You'd have like trailers parked down one end. You'd have all sorts of stuff, and it's just like all just to get the same thing in a week rather than 2 days.
I am not familiar with that type of filmmaking. I'm like, quickly forget this, we'll do that. Go there, do that. It'll be great. Let's try that. Just roll on the rehearsal. Okay, let's do it like this. So one more, two more. There we go. We got that. Try another one. Do whatever you want because we got that last one. That was even better. Do one more of those. Okay, moving on. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's but I think that's the thing. It's like I think I've come from like this area of filmmaking that is always kind of like, you know, just do it. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. You know, I never thought it was possible to. This is going to sound terrible. But I never thought it was possible to read too much. I never thought that you could read so much on a subject that you'd convince yourself not to do a thing that you're desperately excited and eager to do. And I think that happens a lot with filmmakers where, oh, I want to make a film, but I shouldn't because this camera only has these limitations. Like, dude, you ain't making fucking a Chris Nolan movie. You're not making Blade Runner. What you want to do is just get whatever you can and go and make a movie. Chris Nolan went and made Following. That's rough around the edges. You know, it's fine to do that. It doesn't like you're this patient wait for perfection until all the stars align before going to make a film. It never made sense to me because you'll make that, you'll be happy with it, and then someone on the internet will call you a cunt because they didn't like it. And it's like, you know, and it's, well, that's going to happen regardless of what you made. So make something and learn from every single experience you could get making something, because the filmmaker you are at the start of the process of making that film is not the filmmaker at the end of that process. Even if you screw it up and have the worst experience, you know more on that last day than you did on the first day. and you can take that knowledge into the next film, and maybe you'll mess that up less, or maybe that will be perfect. And then you'll need to figure out what it was that you did that worked there. And I just think that that's the thing, is like, fail, screw it up, make a terrible movie, make a piece of shit now, and then 7 years from now, you'll be making something that's 7 years better because you've got that much more experience. That's how I feel about it. And you know, I think that's why it can get quite scary when I made the decision that we were going to have a budget for Nightshooters, and in the search for the budget for Nightshooters, we came across the financiers for Fistful of Lead. They liked the idea of us doing a West. They said we need to make a Western. They had an idea. I took that premise, wrote it. Turns out we couldn't shoot in Laredo because it had flooded. So, but at that point, I booked the time I needed the job. And I went, shit. So I sort of said, look, what if we change it so that we set it in these locations instead? And so they said, yeah, whatever. So we made Fistful of Lead. And and so it was set in those locations. And I think it's the Chris McQuarrie who says you just walk through the doors that open for you. Yeah. And that's how I've always seen this. And it's like, look, I do want to make like a proper gritty Western. I didn't think that this would be that one. I thought, no, this is going to be like kind of a fun Western. I described it to someone the other day. Now, I'm a little bit older than you, so but when I was a teenager, on weeknights on BBC Two, there were just Westerns constantly. You never heard of them. Not the like Nasir Leone ones, just random Westerns. And I said that Fistful of Lead is almost like one of them. It's one where someone will watch it and go, oh, what was that film with the thing? The thing happens in it. You know, has anyone seen that Western? No one's seen that Western? And some guy will ask about it for like 20, 30 years. And then he'll stumble upon it one night and go, hey, this is that film I've been looking for the last 30 years. Oh, yeah, it's all right. That's the type of Western I think I've made. One people go, oh, that was all right. That was kind of fun. You know, I wasn't trying to. I was trying to make like a really cool, fun one. But like I kind of, you know, I try to look at these things sort of realistically and go, shit. And it makes me want to make another one. It makes me because I'm like, no, I know what I can do now. This was a really good crack at doing this, and now I know exactly what we should do to do another one. So I want to do another one in those same locations, but there's a new story I want to tell, and you know, but you know, you're not Dallas in this one. You're someone else, and James isn't isn't the. So I was like, what's his name? James isn't Billy. Well, James is like, you know, he's a different character, and Katie's a different character. And it's just, I like the idea of taking what we learned on this film and then building on it. It's like, it's an interesting way of filmmaking where, you know, like, I think after this, after Dune Drifter, I want to make another sci-fi.
Yeah, you spoke there about something that actually I think came up when I was talking about Brad, about the, you know, just allowing yourself to walk through open doors. I think certainly from the perspective of an actor, there's an awful lot of emphasis on. I mean, naturally we're nervy, emotional wrecks, and we try and control the situation far too much. And you know, there are people, and I'm not saying they are bad or good, but there are whole industries around trying to provide the answers to that said control. People selling, whether it's selling courses on stuff, and you know, there are, most of them are, you know, there's a lot of fairly benign things like that, all the way up to people selling tens of thousands of pounds worth of, you know, go meet this casting director in LA type thing, you know, and everything in between. But I think I've certainly noticed that sometimes the best, you know, there's even lots of life coaching and stuff around this, but it's like, you need to get out the way. Make sure that you're not in the way of opportunity, because if you're sitting around with your biting your fingernails and, you know, and there's too much of you in the way of this process, things are going to come to you and you have to get out of the way of them. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I think that's the thing. There's that, I think a bit of low self-esteem, a bit of insecurity, it's very healthy, because I know filmmakers who don't have that, and the lack of growth. in their work is just, it's there to be seen. Like, technology has evolved to a point where their work hasn't, and it's like, wow, the cameras you're using are better than your skill set, and you've still somehow managed to find a way to make your films look as bad as they did when you were shooting on camcorders. That's kind of impressive in a really messed up backwards way. But the thing that I think it can go too far. People can be so insecure that they're just like, no, and it's all to do with the time not being right. And a friend of mine, he wanted to make a film, and I was like, make the film. He said, the time's not right. And that's all he ever said. And this, I think this is where I plucked out 7 years, earlier, is that about 7 years after us having that conversation, I'd sort of lost touch with him. He popped up and said, I've done it. I made my film. I went, oh, wow, that's amazing. And he goes, I want to show it to you. And he showed it to me. And this was 7 years later, and it was atrocious. It was hideous, dull, really uninteresting. And I was like, horribly acted. And I thought, wow, if you would have made this 7 years ago, like, what film would you be making now?
Yeah.
And it just feels like it felt like such a waste, because there was so much to learn. But I think he put his all into that, and I was like, I don't think this is going to do you any favors. I didn't say that to him, obviously. Look, it would be a terrible thing to do that, and I've fudged a few things here. So in the unlikely event he's going to watch this, or
he might be a fan of Verde.
He or she. Okay, it's a he. It's like guess who.
Well, you've only narrowed it down by half. So. It's. I forgot where I was going. I suddenly got really bad. I think you made.
I didn't want to fuck with his self-esteem, so I wasn't gonna say to him, "You're fucking terrible. You should never do this again." It was like, okay, we had a positive conversation, and it was all about keep going. But I think he did that thing of, oh, this will open doors for me, and it doesn't necessarily do that. I mean, Colin was great. Because of Colin, I was able to meet Michelle on another project, and now she's like, a very close collaborator. Because of Colin, I met Lee James, who's another close collaborator. So there are things as a result of having made Colin that have happened. There are things that have happened because we made Nightshooters, and there are things that we assume are going to happen. It's not going to be suddenly here's my friend Lee Cronin is now doing the next Evil Dead movie. That's a rare thing. That's an amazing, brilliant thing. It's a rare thing. I think everyone expects that, and when I can sort of honestly say to you, Lee didn't expect that. He was like the last person who expected that. It was like, it's one of those things that you just go, look, you just got to sort of look at what you're doing, make what you're making the best it can be. And I worry I might have sounded like I wasn't taking the Western too seriously. I think I was trying to be funny and failing miserably. But I took that film as seriously as I took Nightshooters, and as seriously as I've taken Dune Drifter, and as seriously as I've taken Colin. Like, they're movies that I know I'm going to look at, and I'm going to see things in them that make me go, I'm the worst at this. I should stop. But I really am happy doing this. So I'll keep going, and I won't do this next time. And there's all these little things that bug me that I don't really hear anyone else mentioning, although I'm sure if they bug me, there's a billion people who haven't watched the film. But if they did, they would bug them too. But I think that's what it is. I think you've just so with Colin, there was stuff I did that wasn't in Magpie. And there's stuff I did in Magpie that I didn't do in Nightshooters, and stuff I didn't do in Dune Drifter because of Nightshooters and Fistful and so on. So I think those are the things you just grow each time. And, I just wonder if I'll ever get to a point where I go, hey, look at all this. There we go. I'm not too embarrassed about what I did here. This is fine. And,
Yeah, I think because I remember I had this chat with my really good friend Martin Pickering, who's the director, who I'm hoping to get on this actually at some point. He and I made a film called Wicked Witches. Well, it was originally called The Witches of Dumpling Farm, and then it got retitled into Wicked Witches. And I mean, that's a low budget, very very low budget, self-funded horror film.
I was able to figure out your distributor.
Oh yeah,
through title change.
Okay. We'll have a discussion about that.
Yes.
We're maybe off air because that's There's some things there to talk about. But I remember he and his brother had that idea for yonks, and again, same thing, same sort of like, oh well, I need to get a name involved, and I can't do this because I can't do that, and all this sort of stuff. And I remember just saying to him in the pub one day, I was like, look, mate, you have at your disposal all these resources. You have your expertise, your equipment. You know, your brother's a sound recording engineer, and he's got equipment, and he's got access to equipment, and you have because Martin was predominantly doing sort of music videos and corporate videos and commercials for fashion brands and stuff like that. He had so much at his disposal. I said, why don't you just start? I said, I mean, you've got me. I know that's not the best thing, but we could just shoot concept stuff just so that you have footage to put a proof of concept together or something, right? Let's just get a thing done. And turned into, we're just shooting the whole film, and we did it over like weekends over the space of a year or something. It was just grabbing a total guerrilla film. Now it looks its budget. I mean, it probably looks better than its budget.
I think it does. I think it looks better than because you told me how like low budget it was. I was like, oh, it doesn't look like that. There's stuff in here that a lot of films don't really strive for. It's so I think that's it. It's the ambition you need to. That's what. It is. Ambition is you can, if you fuck up, but you're ambitious. There's more in that, and that's the point. Yeah.
And he's seen that film through now. He had the idea, he made it. It did get a sales agent. It got distribution, and it's won an award. And for my performance, and there you go. I want to. But no, and it got reviews all over the place. I've no idea how it ended up with a review in the LA Times and stuff like that. So there you go. So you don't know where something can go. Now, most moviegoers will probably watch that. If you're not into sort of low budget horror, it did well in sort of low budget horror festivals, and on that circuit, it's been quite well received. But I'm sure your average Joe will look at that and go, "What the?" I think you always assembled a cracking team, and certainly that for me, like most films, and I'm sure it's true of the big stuff as well, is that goodwill is your biggest commodity on anything. And I think if you can create that on a set, people will go to the ends of the earth for you. And like, it speaks to your Tom Hanks's, your Tom Cruise's. That's what they were doing. They were aware of the fact that, you might be getting paid handsomely for being there, but if you don't want to be there, or if you're only there because of that, they're going to end up with a crap film. And they need that rallying cry from everyone in order to get it made. Doesn't matter what it is. So that's smart, man. I've always thought that. And I found that Fistful of Lead. I was towards the end, I was flagging. I remember I was getting ill. I could feel it coming on. That's one thing Scott said to me, actually, because on Accident Man, I came in on the last day. There was a night shoot, and he had been, if you've seen that film, he's thrown himself through, like he does in everything. He's thrown himself through brick walls or whatever. And, you know what I mean? And so he was like, I always get ill at the end, man. And I was like, I do too. If I've been working on a feature and I'm the lead, or I'm one of the leads, and I've been on it, and it's been a grueling, I always get ill because, your immune system's always takes a bashing on stuff like that. But that's an accepted part of it. I kind of go like, I'm kind of glad of that, because I know this is where it's different to any other type of job. It's like, but I'm going to go home and then have tons of downtime to just get better. So I don't care. I'll be fine by the end of it. But it's like, that is just it's a thing. But again, you want people to. What makes the difference is and what gets people back up on their feet is the fact that they feel appreciated, and they feel that there's just general goodwill. If they feel that everyone else is going to make the effort, then they will too. So I think that's smart.
It's the thing as well, is that it's because I think towards the end it is always that sort of tiredness. But the thing I always try to remember is if we do it quick so that we can go home, we'll regret it. We're hungry now, but. In 6 months when we're not hungry anymore and we're watching a shit scene, we'll be gutted. And that's it. I know that I made that sound like we go home late. We don't. Like I'm very strict with what we have to do in the time. Like we don't go over. We don't shoot for like 12-hour days. We try to keep them reasonable. And but it's one of those things where like in that time you've got to get the best out of everyone. You can't go over. And the way, again, I think of it like this. And this is the thing I think a lot of directors do. They go to the crew and say, "Oh, guys, it means so much to me if we could just stay for just another hour." And the thing is, it's like, well, hang on. if look at it like this. If I was managing a McDonald's and I went to all the people working underneath me and said, hey, guys, look, I really want this to be the greatest shift McDonald's has ever known. So for me, can you all just work on for free for another hour? Like, they'd be like, no, fuck you. I'm not. So you got to think of it like that. You can't think of it like, because every other fucking director is going to ask them the same thing. Oh, this means a lot to me. And it's like, no, look, dude, you got to, be responsible and make the goddamn movie in the time given to you. It can be done. It's
that's a curious, that's a good point. Is what I've found sometimes, and it's usually, it's not, I don't wish to speak ill of people at all, but there are people out there who seem to think their film is the only film you've ever done, even though they can't think that because they've seen your CV or they've seen, they know you've come from other things. But they have this attitude of like, they don't. I suppose they don't think outside of themselves and think, well, actually, maybe I'm not the first person who's asked that favor. And don't get me wrong, I feel that I have the attitude that if I commit to a project, I've committed. There's no point in going in half-assed because it's only going to reflect badly on me. I remember thinking on Fistful of Lead, I was cold, I was uncomfortable, I was freezing, it was dank, but I just thought these.
And then you had to lie down.
Well, that's what I mean.
Standing in it, it's like, oh, you're gonna lie in it.
Yeah, I know, but I was like, but these images are gonna look cool. They're gonna look really good, and I'm not gonna. In a few months' time, when I see this back, I'm not gonna give a toss. I'm not gonna remember the pain. I'm just gonna think, oh yeah, that looks really cool, and so it's like you just push through, but you'll only do that if you don't feel like you're with people who are taking the piss, which. Yeah. Which is rarer. I mean, I have to say, I haven't had that really for a long time. But you galvanize yourself and you push through. But
it's always about making sure people are appreciated. That's what it is. And I think that if you do find yourself stuck, people will work like I don't mean longer, but they'll work harder. And it's everyone is, especially on some small thing. When I was doing Colin, I remember saying, look, everyone was there for free. No one was getting paid. Like, everyone was there for free. So if they don't want to be there anymore, that's my fault, because everyone came wanting to do something for free. And if by the end of that they're not interested, then I've fucked up, because I've pissed away all that goodwill, and that's what I needed to make that movie, and that's what we managed to somehow have. Some people don't see it. It doesn't matter how good a job you're doing or how hard you're working. It doesn't matter what you show them. Some people don't see it, and I'm very fortunate. I haven't come across that very often, like probably only maybe 2 or 3 times, and even then it was like harmless, like it was nothing, and again, for the same reason, I don't want to shit on people.
No.
Like, I'll tell you off. I'll tell you when we're off. So that fucking. No, we're joking. We'll tweet it. But no, but you don't really want to. There's some people it just doesn't matter, and it's like, okay, it's not about them, it's for everyone else, and you got to make sure that those people don't pollute the water. Sure. And that's where it is with these things. I fucking I genuinely can't get enough of it. Like, I'm coming to the end of this film, and I think for the last month or so, because it's been very, very difficult to manage. I felt like, Jesus, I just can't wait for this one to be over. And I got to watch the film for the first time from beginning to end last week, and I was like, okay. And this always a stressy moment, because you look at it and go, okay, this is what I needed to fix. But to see it flow and just go, wow, that little moment there worked so much better than it was just a line and a shot before. Now I'm seeing it in this context and it works, and I was like, oh shit, that really worked for me. And I'm like the toughest audience for this thing. So it was exciting, and I kind of can't wait to finish it and show people. And,
I can't wait to see it either. Yeah, my voice is in it. Marc, if you're one of Marc's actors, you often get sent, or friends, or you often get these messages with videos attached. So he's like, "Look at this," and he hits it, and it looks amazing. And you're like, "Did you?" And I filmed it on a bog roll with 2 potatoes or whatever. And I'm like, "Oh my god, what is this? This is amazing." Yes, I was very fortunate. You asked me to do some voiceover work for that, which I'm super excited to see. Dune Drifter. I think you're gonna give us some footage, and we're gonna show that.
I'll put some space battle stuff in there.
Amazing.
We got someone working on the mix, so I've given all of your lines to I said. So like a couple of you guys got lines. They're all gonna. I'll find it where they go. We're very lucky to have a very good sound mixer. Normally, that makes it sound like I just give it to someone and then like whatever comes back. No, I've the poor Ben, bless him. He has been like I've given him some very thorough notes of what I want there, but there are a couple of places where I've given him options in this way. Like I said, okay, there, or there, or there. Said, surprise me, I want to. So we'll see where it goes, where it lies. But it's it's been so much fun, and yeah, of course, shooting it in my living room actually, which is quite strange because it was easier to build a spaceship in my living room than Longcross Studios. We were offered some space at Longcross Studios, and we could have had a gimbal and all sorts. And I kind of thought, oof, that's amazing, but I think it would make things much more stressful to shoot what we needed to shoot. And what it allowed us, we were able to keep the setup, and I was able to shoot inserts and with a lot of ease. And actually, lockdown has been quite handy in that I could shoot those inserts with Lee. So Lee is the hands of so many burly dudes in this film, flying spaceships. I did a stunt. It's not a stunt, but technically it is.
I tripped over and
I had to smash my head into the steering column.
Oh wow!
Which is quite fun to give it a little bit of Sam Raimi. Lee was like hitting me with like a pressure gun of dust, so it really woke it up. And because I can't do the handheld thing in post, because I'm shit at that, I reshot it off my laptop and just gave it a little shake. So. There's so much stupid things we did like that in it that kind of worked quite nicely. We used rear projection in it, front projection. There's not as much green screen in this. I don't think there's any actually. There's I think 2 shots, and that was because we needed some bodies in space. So we took apart an office chair, stuck Lee on an office chair. She put lots of frosted stuff on her so it looks like she'd been frozen in the depths of space, and then just spun herself around in front of a green screen, and
Amazing.
she's in Bill Nose spinning around.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean, like Longcross is I've done a few things at Longcross, and it's a disused army. It's a tank and helicopter factory. I remember doing Law and Order UK there in a courtroom scene they built inside this old helicopter testing thing, which had like huge circular roof because obviously the blades had to be able to go around and stuff like that. And it's a really, really weird place, and it's got its own train station, which is bizarre. That's right, but you have to park and walk 1,000,000 miles basically at that place. But yeah, I mean that's one of those things where it would have probably just been surplus to requirements. I think. I mean, really cool.
Yeah, we're very lucky because Lee works with Neil Corbould and he does all Ridley Scott's films and Spielberg's films whenever he's working in the UK. And he said, oh, look, there's a gimbal here that we have for a thing we were doing for BA. I got a canopy from one of the Terminator films he was working on at the time. And he said, yeah, you could have all that. We're like, oh, God, that is so cool. And I kind of just wanted to sit in a gimbal and wiggle it around. But it just was one of those things that, like, when we looked at it logically, it would have been really, really hard to get everyone there and back. And again, our budget is so limited that just getting a bunch of people to Longcross, which we would have had to have paid for.
Yeah,
it would have turned into just like a logistical nightmare, and it would have, And I said, look, if we do this in my living room, I'm living with the DP, he's down with it. Let's just build the thing here. And so we got Nicky Evans, who's an actor, like one of the best actors I know, and he's like, oh, I'll build a spaceship. I love building things. So he built that spaceship for us, and he found a way to make all these practical monitors and holograms work. And so we just shot that stuff. It was all there in camera, and it was such a fun experience shooting it. And of course, Alistair Curtin, the guy who plays Colin, he pops up to play a colonel. Nice. You barking orders, and it's just such a fun thing making a sci-fi where you've got we had Phoebe Sparrow, who's the main actor in the film, and she was just sort of looking at a monitor, and I was like, wow, we're just filming Phoebe looking at monitors, but what we put on those monitors, it feels like a real tangible place, and it feels like she's looking at information and it's devastating her, and I just, there's a part of that magic of movie making that I'm seeing in that and going, wow. And it's got nothing to do with me, it's just to do with her performance and what's on the monitors and the performances of people in the monitors. But I'm looking at it going like, oh my god, this somehow works. I don't like I get the principle of it all, but I can't believe it does. This is great. So there's I don't know, I really got a kick out of making this film. There's so much, and yeah, as exhausted as it was towards the end, you sort of go, huh, oh wow, this is really awesome. We kind of did this, and no film will be as difficult as this one. Certain of it. Certain of it.
Mate, that's fantastic. Well, that's great. I can't wait to see it, man. So look, just as we wrap up, I asked this with Brad as well, but kind of what would be your kind of advice? I know this is such a vague question, and I'm sure it's one you get asked all the time by people, but like, what's your take on people starting out or getting into it, or, you know, who want to find their kind of leg up? I mean, we touched upon being resourceful and just starting with what you've got and stop putting barriers to entry in front of yourself. What else would you say to people?
I'd say look around you. There are going to be friends who have a skill that they may not have necessarily tapped into themselves. Like I've got guys who do visual effects for me, who I asked them because I said, I can't figure out After Effects. Can you figure this out and do this shot? They're like, oh, I'm up for a challenge of that. Yeah, and so they've done that, and now they work in visual effects, and so it's and I only ask them because they are logical people who know how to build, who know how to learn software. And I thought, okay, I'll ask for things if it doesn't look right. But then I don't need to, because they're logical enough to do their research and look for real footage and then find a way to make those things work. And that's just visual effects. It's every aspect of film is covered there. You know, anything anyone wants to do, you can say, okay, I need. Do you want to try acting? So many people ask friends who've never acted before, and what I like, and what I really like is I like mixing experienced actors with non-actors or not experienced actors, people who aren't trained, who don't have discipline. I love throwing that mess together because I like seeing what happens when someone who understands the toolkit of performing like you do, you know how to handle that. And that person just wants to be convincing. And so there's going to be some conflict, but also a lot of work together. And you're probably going to be getting on with that person as well, because, you know, I try not to put like a twat in a room, you know. So there's going to be something there. And so I'd say look around the people around you, because you've probably got all the resources you need to make your movie right there. I know you have a camera. It's on phones. It's a film called Tangerine. It's a couple of years old now. That was made on an iPhone. From then, you know, so you can do it. Like I shot. There's a couple of shots in Dune Drifter that are 4K shot off my iPhone, because I went, "Ooh, I need the picture quality to degrade slightly because of what I was shooting." So I shot one shot off my iPhone. I'm waiting for my colorist to come at me and go, "What's this?" He hasn't yet. So wow. I'm like, "Oh, that's great," because it's a totally different frame rate. It's actually 24 frames per second. I had to conform it to 25. I thought he'd catch me out. He hasn't said shit. I think I got away with it. So there's no reason not to try something. Just get a couple of mates together, fucking film something, and edit it on the phone. iMovie's free on the phone. I think I've got that on there. I use it for a couple of things. It's fucking useless on a phone, but it's something. And this, like, don't worry if it sucks. It's okay. Like, if you don't look at the first thing you do 10 years later and think it's shit, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Even if it's fucking Reservoir Dogs, you should be a different filmmaker.
Yeah.
Like 30 years after Reservoir Dogs, you can go, oh man, if I made that now, it would look a bit more like this. you know, there's something, you know. So I think that's the trick, is that you got to look at just try stuff. Don't let doubt fuck you into not even trying, because at the very least, it's fucking fun. Like, and you're doing something you love and care about, and that's the thing that that's the thing, right? That's what we live for. I mean, I know. Like, I assume when I die, no one's gonna know or care, but I know that if I were to die tomorrow, I'm really enjoyed the experience of trying to. I'm still not making the films I want to make, but this little, you know, my route to get into where I want to be, it's to me, it's amazing. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm learning more. Like, I'm learning more about how to do it. So if I ever get to a point where someone trusts me enough to give me a real decent chunk of money, I can go, okay, well, I know what I can do with that. and you build on them. And I think that's the general idea for me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I there's something I like because your kind of style and approach. This you're in some ways you're kind of an anathema in that, like, it can. I'm trying to describe this the best way I can. There's that kind of try it. There's which is brilliant, and that's absolutely what you should have. But there is also a confidence about, like, I know that going into work with you, but I also know that when you talk about stuff, you're like, no, I know how I'm going to do this. It already seems like boom, boom, boom. I know exactly. There's a confidence there that I think you only get from just doing it. You know what I mean? Like you going into Fistful of Fish, you're like, don't worry about it. Well, I know what I'm doing. I know how to get that. And I could see that.
I hope we said it less arrogantly.
Yeah.
But you're right. I remember we were doing a shootout, and I was like, okay, we need this whip, and I think that I think I found it easier if I was shooting the guns at that point. And so I said, look, I'll do this, and Sam, you do the camera, and Sam just got really, like, he did a few takes and went, we should go over there. And I said, we can, but we're going to do this first because I know how this is going to work. And he trusted me and went, okay. But I could see he was there going, like, I don't understand how this is going to work. He saw the finished film and saw how it all fit. He went, shit, yeah, it makes sense. Now I know I know what you were doing. That's cool. And that was it. But it wasn't a case of him doubting me the whole time and he couldn't wait to see if I was wrong. He just wasn't sure. Yeah. And I said, look, I'm not going to be able to communicate this clearly, but I know if you can give me this and this and this, I can put those things together and I can get what I want out of this, and then we can add that to this other stuff that you want to try, and then we'll get there. I think that's it. It's because there's always a take two.
Yeah. Do
it, try it. If it doesn't work, okay, there'll be a take two. And you know what? In take two, I'm going to try and get you to do it in a way that doesn't fuck with your confidence. I was doing something with Alistair Curtin, and he completely nailed a take, and it was perfect. And I was so happy, and I said, mate, that's fantastic. And he said, what do you say, though, when I fuck up a take? I say the exact same thing as when you nail a take, because the last thing I need is you doubting yourself, because that'll just make things go a whole lot slower. So you'll never know how dissatisfied I am with some of your stuff.
Well, that's good to know.
And he pissed himself laughing, but at the same time he knew what I meant. He's like, because it's not helpful to go, Duncan, between you and me, oh fuck, that was a stinker. Don't do that, okay? And you're like what the fuck? How is that gonna, like? Do you think that your next take is gonna be awesome because of that piece of direction?
Yeah.
No. Mine would be either. If you pulled me aside and said, "Oh, I'm not happy with the directing," I'd be like, "Fuck you! I don't need you to be happy with it. I just need you to do it right." You know what I mean? It just turns into a fucking shitstorm of just people being really pissed off with each other, and it's just not effective. It doesn't help anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, I philosophically, if someone takes me aside and says, "Look, try it." I mean, like, no one's ever done this, which is, but they may have wanted to. But there's that thing of, like, if you could philosophically go, oh yeah, okay, I understand. You need to tell me because I don't want to get it wrong. But then you're like, oh my god, and as soon as that seed is planted, we're all human, it's and sometimes that seed gets planted not because anyone said anything, but because I've caught something on a monitor or whatever. That's why I don't look at playback. If someone really needs to show it to me so that I can see how I need to place myself, or for blocking or something. But otherwise, forget it. I don't want to see, because I'll just see all the bad things.
The only time I ever show actors playback is usually when there's something technical that doesn't really require them to look at a performance and go, oh man, I really fucked up ducking. Like it's something like, there's this, but then, so it's never really, you've got to be careful of those things for that reason, because you don't want, my assumption is that every actor will see themselves and just go, I'm the worst. That's the assumption, because that's my assumption whenever I look at stuff that I do. It's like, fuck, I've made a bad choice here.
In a way, you kind of hope so. You hope that's for direction, because if it isn't, like you said before, there's problems.
Yeah, but the thing is that I remember, like, see, I think it would have been different. Like, and I didn't need to do this, and but I don't think there would have been anything. But if I would have pulled you aside in a fistful of lead and I said, "Look at all those guys. A lot of that shit ain't in the script. You're competing with this. Fucking get in there, mess it up, fuck with them, do something like that's different. That's, you know,
Right.
like say if you know that's a different, that's encouraging you to play. It's like, I know you've come, you've got the script down, and you're 100% nailing it, and I've literally got no notes for every take, but that's the starting point. Let's see how much further we can go. Fuck with those guys. Give them something to fucking look at. Like this. Let's see what we, you know. And we didn't need to do it on Festival Led because everyone was just fucking perfect. But like I think pulling someone aside for something like that isn't the same as pulling them aside to say, it's not even saying you're not doing enough, even though it could be misconstrued that way. It's saying, fucking, you have permission here to go and try shit, and I want you to, and don't worry about what fits. You know, it's like that's my job later, and I kind of like that. It's a way of filmmaking that I've always enjoyed, and like well, it's the only thing I know what to do. I don't think it'll change. I don't think there'll be a time where I'll go, oh wow, we've got all the time in the world that we can spend a day getting the scene. We did that once. I fucking hated it. It was so boring. I was like, oh god, like really? Okay. And all we were doing was waiting for light to come into a room, and I was just like, fuck, I wish we were doing something. It's more fun when you're racing through stuff and oh, now we're here, let's try getting this, and now if we do that, you get inspiration from seeing something work or not work, and you don't get that when you're sitting around waiting for something to happen that you don't even know if it's going to work. It's I don't know. We'll find out, hopefully, if I can keep making movies.
I should think so, mate. Well, look, let's I won't say end it there, but let's put a pin in it there. We may well come back and do some more insider chat. It's looking like the sun has sort of been setting as we've been talking. Now you're by the fire or something. It looks like you're at the glow of a hearth.
I've got my light. I think it's on all the way. Oh no, it wasn't. Oh shit! There's one more notch.
All good, man.
I could have been lit better. Instead, I'm just a grainy mess. Sorry.
It's Skype. No one has any expectations. Before we go, is there anywhere you'd like people to come check out your work? Any social medias or whatever you'd like to point people to?
I'm on Twitter. Again, this is an apology for my Twitter handle, but Twitter had just come out when I got it, so it's @Marc _V _Price. There's a lot of underscores in there. I realize it's quite frustrating to have to type. It's also my Instagram, and that's I guess. If anyone, I don't know how interested I am. I just retweet Star Wars shit. That's all I do.
That's what we do.
Funny Star Wars stuff, like
we just sit there liking each other's stuff. I think that's usually what happens. But yeah, excellent. Well, please go and check that out. And obviously, Dune Drifter is going to get some kind of release, I should think, in the near future. So eyes peeled for that, right?
Yes.
Very good.
If you think by the time you get this out, it might be in a festival or two, wherever the shape or form festivals are in, or not. It might be terrible, and they're like, "Get out of my face with this shit." Who knows? I hope not.
I doubt it. Not from what I've seen. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, dude, and we'll do this again soon. And
thank you,
it's a pleasure.
Народа, с нами все бри трудовой.